following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella, starting with the weather report. A bit of snow and rain at times in the morning with little or no accumulation, otherwise cloudy today, a high of 36. Low clouds tonight, low of 33. Mostly cloudy tomorrow, a high of 46 and a low of 40. For Friday, breezy in the morning, rain, high 53, low of 35. For Saturday, low clouds, a high of 47, low of 33. For Sunday, breezy and colder, high of 37, low of 26. Monday, clouds and sun, high of 37, low of 32. Tuesday, mostly cloudy, high of 39, low of 31. Sunrise today was at 7:46 a.m. and sunset tonight is at 4:58 p.m. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Our opening story. How many bills from state lawmakers became law? Dems fare better than GOP, but percentage passed is low. Albany. Sean Ryan left his position as state senator on Thursday to become mayor of Buffalo, but he leaves Albany with the distinction of sponsoring the region's highest percentage of bills signed into state law in 2025. The Buffalo Democrat introduced 55 bills since the start of the year, including 12, 22%, that Governor Kathy Hochul signed into law. Ryan sponsored laws to enable Erie County to impose a 1.75% sales and compensating use tax to keep non-parents away from abused and neglected children under their care, and help the Seneca Nation of Indians root out drug dealers, among other measures. That's in addition to Ryan-sponsored legislation included in the state budget to continue tax credits for Renaissance Commerce Park on the former Bethlehem Steel site in Lackawanna, and double the tax credit to $10,000 for New Yorkers who install a geothermal energy system, which uses energy stored in the ground or in bodies of water to produce heat, according to Ryan's spokesperson, Ian Watt. Senator Ryan worked hard to have the most productive legislative session of his career while also running a mayoral campaign, Ott said. Lawmakers introduced 17,480 bills in 2025. The passage rate in both the Assembly and Senate was 11%. The Senate, 10%, saw a slightly higher percentage become law than the Assembly, 9%, according to the Buffalo News analysis of bills introduced between January 1st and December 30th. Overall, Democrats who sit in the majority in both the Assembly and Senate had higher percentages of passing bills moving through their respective houses and into law. For example, Ryan and first-year Senator April Baskin, Democrat Buffalo, saw the Senate pass close to half of their combined 105 bills. The region's 4 Republican senators collectively saw the Senate pass 8% of their 459 bills. Ryan and Baskin collectively passed 12% of their bills into law. Their Republican Senate colleagues together passed 7.6% of their bills into law. The outlier was Senator Thomas O'Mara, a Southern-tier Republican who represents part of Allegheny County. 12 of O'Mara's bills became law, tying Ryan for the most in the delegation, while O'Mara's success rate, 20%, was below that of Ryan. It dwarfed his fellow Republicans from the state's 8 most western counties. Minority Leader Robert Ort, Republican North Tonawanda, saw 10 of his 165 bills, 6%, pass the Senate and into law. By comparison, Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins, Democrat Yonkers, saw 14 of her 18 bills, 78%, pass the Senate, with 12 signed into law. Senator Patrick Gallivan, Republican Elma, and George Borrello, Republican Sunset Bay, each introduced 115 bills. Gallivan saw 3 become law, 2.6, while Borrello saw 8.6% become law. Both lawmakers said they introduced proposals for the benefit of their districts while acknowledging the system favors the Democratic majority. Ultimately, the percentage of bills that passed rests entirely with the discretion of the majority, Borrello said. In the Assembly, the region's 5 Democrats moved 16% of their 177 bills through the House and 12% into law. The region's 8 Assembly Republicans, by contrast, passed less than 9% of their combined 324 bills through the House and 8% into law. Assemblymember Andrew Molitor, the first-year Republican from Westfield in Chautauqua County, said most minority-sponsored bills never becoming up for a vote in legislation committees. The few that did, he said, were tabled so they cannot go further. Many good ideas supported by a majority of New Yorkers never move forward for a vote merely because of partisanship, Molitor said. We shouldn't be afraid of good ideas simply because they come from a legislator with an R or D or an I next to their name. If we work together to craft good legislation, New Yorkers would reap the benefits. Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes, a Buffalo Democrat and one of the most powerful lawmakers in Albany, saw 10 of her 51 bills, 19.6 passed the Assembly, of which 9 became law. Assembly Minority Leader Will Barkley, Republican Pulaski, leader of the Assembly Republicans, saw 5 of his 52 bills, 9.6% pass the Assembly, of which 3 became law. The analysis shows what has long been true in Albany: the majority rules, said Blair Warner, a longtime state government watchdog within the New York Public Interest Research Group. Successful bills sponsored by minority party lawmakers, which tend to be non-controversial, respond to a specific issue to the relevant district, Warner said. For instance, the 12 O'Meara-sponsored bills that became law designated or dedicated sections of state highway within the district, authorized counties within their district to impose taxes, allowed a non-resident of the town of Montour in Schuyler County to become a town justice, and allowed assistant district attorneys in Yates County to reside in Chemung County. Baskin's 10 bills signed into law included Desch's Law, a law requiring schools across the state to create cardiac emergency response procedures in their existing safety and preparedness rule plans. It was inspired by the death of Baskin's cousin, Desha Sanders, 12, a player in the Hoover Middle School identified basketball team, who experienced heart complication and collapsed during practice and died January 7, 2009. Baskin-sponsored bills that are now law included the proposal allowing parents to freeze the credit of their children under the age of 18, repeal a prohibition on organ transplant, candidates from listing on multiple transplant programs in the state, and continue the authority of the state's Department of Environmental Conservation to regulate the catching of oysters, their size limits, open and closed seasons, and possession limits. As 2025 comes to a close, I am proud to represent and sponsor legislation that will benefit not only District 33 constituents, but residents across the state, Baskin said in the statement. Majority sponsorship aside, some bills sponsored by powerful lawmakers failed to become law, and in one case remained in limbo. A bill sponsored by Assembly member Jonathan Rivera, Democrat Buffalo, co-sponsored with Senate Deputy Majority Leader Michael Gianaris, Democrat Queens, would make Erie County its own judicial district and do the same for Monroe and Onondaga counties. The bill passed both houses, but as of Monday, it was one of 2 bills that passed both houses that had not been delivered to Hochul. The other bill, the medical aid in dying proposal, will be signed into law, Hochul said. And over a 60-day period, 3 murders, all tied to drug trafficking, took place in the nation's territory, the nation of Seneca said. It noted in a news release that Seneca Nation territories are in the middle of a known drug corridor between Salamanca and Jamestown through the southern tier and up toward Buffalo. Armed with the clarity of new legislation, the Seneca Nation will immediately begin working with our local law enforcement partners on agreements and strategies to cooperatively address issues facing our territories. Ryan and Peoples-Stokes had less success with their bill to provide a new 25-year retirement plan for officers at Erie County Medical Center, which the governor vetoed. Hochul vetoed another Ryan bill co-sponsored with Assembly member William Conrad, Democrat Tonawanda, to increase the reimbursement for court interpreters. The year saw bipartisan success at times. Baskin and first-year Assembly member Patrick Chludzinski, Republican Cheektowaga, sponsored a bill to impose a 3% hotel occupancy tax as requested by the town board. Chludzinski moved 2 of his 15 bills, 13% through the Assembly and into law. Considering the tremendous number of bills introduced each year and the fact that in 2023-24, only 11% of bills passed became law, I am very pleased to achieve a 13% approval rate as a first-year legislator in a minority. Even Ryan saw more bills fail than pass into law, leaving the annual occurrence of bills facing new hopes at passage in legislative sessions to come. The spokesman for Ryan said he has already begun working with colleagues to ensure that bills that didn't pass this session will pass next year.
Thank you, Larry. Want some more figures? Western New York job market appears to take a turn for the better. The Buffalo-Niagara job market did an about-face in November, taking a much-needed turn for the better after stagnating for most of the year. The region, aided by a solid boost in seasonal holiday hiring, added roughly 3,100 jobs between September and November, the region's biggest two-month gain since January, and broke a three-month string of job losses that started in midsummer, according to a new report from the State Labor Department. It was a welcome dose of good news for the region's economy, which has seen its job market sputter since February, as local businesses grappled with the uncertainty over the Trump administration's wavering tariff policies and a steep drop in visits from Canadian shoppers and tourists angered by Trump's demeaning comments about their nation. But now tariff policies have stabilized at rates that are higher than they were a year ago, but less than the draconian levels Trump first proposed. That gives certainty to business executives who have wondered for months whether they should hire or hunker down. It's encouraging, said Timothy Glass, the State Labor Department's regional economist in Buffalo. It's a sign that companies are starting to navigate some of the uncertainty that's been out there, Glass said. They're starting to get an idea of what to look for and what to do and where to go. The jump in hiring during November was a marked change from what has been happening in the job market for most of the rest of the year. Hiring had essentially stagnated months before the nation had settled into what economists described as a no-hire, no-fire job market. The November jobs report, which was delayed by a month because of the federal government shutdown, is the most comprehensive snapshot we have of how the local economy is faring. And the November numbers changed the narrative from one of stagnation to slow growth, an important shift for a lagging job market that still has 3,000 fewer jobs than it did before the COVID-19 pandemic started. The November report indicates that temporary holiday hiring was strong, with more workers at stores as well as at the warehouses that process the online purchases that make up an ever-growing portion of holiday spending. Because the market has loosened a little bit in terms of having more people on the sidelines available for work, there was more seasonal hiring this year than there has been in the recent past, said Julie Anna Golubiewski, a Canisius University economist. There also was more hiring in a category that includes temporary help, which could be a sign that companies remain cautious about adding full-time workers. Hiring was strong at local schools and colleges as well at health care firms. But there were soft spots too. Construction employment is off by more than 3%, while manufacturing also is down. Food and drinking places had 3% fewer employees, a reflection of the hard times downtown restaurants are facing, and potentially a sign that consumers are cutting back on discretionary spending. The clouds of uncertainty that existed 8 months ago in the face of tariffs on, tariffs off have subsided, but there still is a good amount of uncertainty in the market, Golubiewski said. We're not quite sure where the economy is headed. If the labor market truly is slowing down and people are anticipating their income to fall and firms are anticipating that consumers will reduce their spending, they're going to be cautious as they make decisions going forward, she said. So instead of hiring full-time, the more cautious approach would be to hire temporary workers and see how everything shakes out. In other words, between the temporary holiday jobs and the regular temporary positions, some of the new jobs from the November report might go away in the coming months. And there is an even bigger caveat that should dampen the enthusiasm over the robust November jobs report. It's likely that the monthly job figures, like the ones released on Tuesday, are too optimistic. The monthly data is revised each March by comparing it with a more accurate but less timely series of job numbers. Economists at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York have come up with a way to do that update earlier, and through September they estimate that the region really has about 4,700 fewer jobs than the monthly data says it does. That's a gap equal to about 1% of all local jobs, so it potentially is a concerning difference. If it proves to be accurate once the final revisions are done, it also means that the 5,200 jobs the monthly data shows the region gaining over the past year, a little less than 1% increase, would be closer to 500 jobs, which would signal that hiring has pretty much stagnated. Those are two very different outcomes. A local job market with modest but solid growth, as opposed to one that's just treading water. There are other mildly concerning signs. The pace of job cuts across the region has been ticking steadily higher since the beginning of October. The number of workers filing for unemployment benefits for the first time, a timely indicator of layoffs, has topped 1,000 for 11 straight weeks through the end of December, the longest since a 15-week stretch from November 2024 through late March. The 4-week moving average of jobless claims, which smooths out some of the week-to-week volatility, now stands at 1,650 a week, which is the highest since late January, according to the State Labor Department data. That's concerning because it indicates that layoffs have accelerated since the latest jobs report data was collected in mid-November. The federal government shutdown means we're still playing catch-up on key data that helps us gauge the strength of the region's economy. We should get an even better picture when a December jobs report is released, possibly later this month. It's been a slow road. We're eventually going to get back to normal and back on track, Glass said, and this shows we're almost there. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 16 minutes after the hour. Fifth anniversary of riot brings fresh division to U.S. Capitol. Washington. 5 years ago, outside the White House, outgoing President Donald Trump told a crowd of supporters to head to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, in protest as Congress was affirming the 2020 election victory for Democrat Joe Biden. A short time later, the world watched as the seat of U.S. power descended into chaos, and democracy hung in the balance. On the fifth anniversary of January 6, 2021, there is no official event to memorialize what happened that day when the mob made its way down Pennsylvania Avenue and battled police at the Capitol barricades and stormed inside as lawmakers fled. The political parties refused to agree to a shared history of the event, which were broadcast around the globe. And the official plaque honoring the police who defended the Capitol has never been hung. Instead, the day displayed the divisions that still define Washington and the country, and the White House itself issued a glossy new report with its own revised history of what happened. Trump, during a lengthy morning speech to the House Republicans, convening away from the Capitol at the rebranded Kennedy Center, now carrying his own name, shifted blame for January 6 onto the rioters themselves. The president said he had intended only for his supporters to go peacefully and patriotically to confront Congress as it certified Biden's win. He blamed the media for focusing on other parts of his speech that day. At the same time, Democrats held their own morning meeting at the Capitol, reconvening members of the House committee that investigated the January 6, 2021 attack for a panel discussion. Recalling the history of the day is important, they said, in order to prevent what Representative Jamie Raskin, Democrat, Maryland, warned was the GOP's Orwellian project of forgetting. And the former leader of the militant Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, summoned people for a midday march, retracing the rioters' steps from the White House to the Capitol, this time to honor Trump supporter Ashley Babbitt and others who died in the January 6th siege and its aftermath. More than 100 people gathered, including Babbitt's mother. Tarrio and others are putting pressure on the Trump administration to punish officials who investigated and prosecuted the January 6 rioters. He was sentenced to 22 years in prison for seditious conspiracy for orchestrating the January 6 attack, and he is among more than 1,500 defendants who saw their charges dropped when Trump issued a sweeping pardon on his return to the White House last year. They should be fired and prosecuted, Tarrio told the crowd before they arrived at the Capitol, confronted along the way by counter-protesters. The White House, in its new report, highlighted the work the president has already done to free those charged and turn the blame on Democrats for certifying Biden's election victory. This milestone anniversary carries echoes of the differences that erupted that day, but it unfolds while attention is focused elsewhere, particularly after the U.S. military's stunning capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and Trump's plans to take over the country and prop up its vast oil industry, a striking new era of American expansionism. These people in the administration, they want to lecture the world about democracy when they're undermining the rule of law at home, as we all will be powerfully reminded, House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York said on the eve of the anniversary. House Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana, responding to requests for comment about the delay in hanging the plaque honoring the police at the Capitol as required by law, said in a statement on the eve of the anniversary that the statute is not implementable and proposed alternatives that do not comply with the statute. At the morning hearing at the Capitol, lawmakers heard from a range of witnesses and others, including former U.S. Capitol Police Officer Winston Pingen, who said as a kid he always dreamed of being a cop, but on that day he thought he was going to die in the mayhem of the steps of the Capitol. I implore America to not forget what happened, he said. I believe the vast majority of Americans have so much more in common than what separates them. Also testifying was Pamela Hempel, a rioter who refused Trump's pardon, blamed the president for the violence, and silenced the room as she apologized to the officers sitting alongside her at the witness table, stifling tears. I can't allow them not to be recognized, to be lied about, Hempel said about the police, who, she said, also saved her life as she fell and was trampled on by the mob. Until I can see that plaque get up there, I am not done. Many Republicans reject the narrative that Trump sparked the January 6th attack, and Johnson, before he became the House Speaker, had led challenges to the 2020 election. He was among some 130 GOP lawmakers voting that day to reject the presidential results from some states. Instead, they have focused on security lapses at the Capitol. At least 5 people died in the Capitol siege and its aftermath, including Babbitt, who was shot and killed by police while trying to climb through the window of a door near the House chamber, and Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who died after battling the mob. Several law enforcement personnel died later, some by suicide. The Justice Department indicted Trump on 4 counts in a conspiracy to defraud voters with his claims of a rigged election in the run-up to the January 6 attack. Former Justice Special Counsel Jack Smith told lawmakers last month that the riot at the Capitol does not happen without Trump. He ended up abandoning the case once Trump was reelected president, adhering to department guidelines against prosecuting a sitting president.
Thank you, Larry. Today in history, on this date, in 1610, astronomer Galileo Galilei observed 3 of Jupiter's moons for the first time and a 4th days later. In 1955, Marian Anderson became the first African American to sing with the Metropolitan Opera in New York in Verdi's Un Ballo de Machera. In 1979, Vietnamese forces captured the Cambodian capital of Phnom Penh, overthrowing the communist Khmer Rouge government, whose brutal policies were blamed for the deaths of 1.7 million people, including the killing of thousands of Vietnamese villagers in cross-border raids. In 1999, President Bill Clinton's speech impeachment trial began on grounds of perjury to a grand jury and obstruction of justice. The Republican-controlled House voted in 1998 to start proceedings after months of controversy over Clinton's relationship with White House intern Monica Lewinsky, with whom he denied having a sexual relationship. The Senate acquitted Clinton on February 12th, falling far short of the 67 votes needed to convict on each charge. In 2015, masked gunmen stormed the Paris offices of Charlie Hebdo, a French newspaper that had caricatured the Prophet Muhammad, methodically killing 12 people, including the editor, before escaping. 2 suspects were killed 2 days later. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The local Buffalo News editorial. A new mayor. Ryan's calls for collaboration and fixing the basics carry the right message. Sean Ryan sounded the right notes during his brief inauguration speech at Kleinhans Music Hall last week. He was inspirational as well as pragmatic, speaking honestly of Buffalo's problems, but with confidence of how to overcome them and move forward. Ryan spoke of trust founded in government's competence level, stating, "City government earns trust by doing the everyday things well. When the streets are safe and the snow is cleared, when parks and community centers are cared for, people feel respected. We refer to these things as the basics, but they're not small things. Getting them right is how we build trust." It's not news that Ryan has a tough road ahead of him. Former Mayor Byron Brown's administration left a deficit of an estimated $50 million behind when Brown resigned to become head of Western Regional Off-Track Betting Corp in October 2024. Former Common Council President Christopher Scanlon, who took over as mayor through the end of last month, managed to whittle down the deficit to an estimated $2 million for the current fiscal year, but there are no reserves, and borrowing for important infrastructure projects is still held up in court. Ryan will need to unleash the borrowing power to fix the city's roads, sidewalks, and parks, and other elements he refers to as the basics. He'll also have to look at all possible options, including higher taxes, to bring the city's finances back into balance. 20 years ago, Brown also faced a gloomy fiscal outlook with the city under a hard control board, and his inauguration speech was not dissimilar, as he promised to work collectively with all neighborhoods and sections toward a new Buffalo. He vowed to create jobs, provide reliable city services, and maintain tough, smart public policy. Back then, there was hope and excitement as Buffalo's first black mayor took the helm. That positive energy has faded. While the Brown administration's reliance on one-shot revenues and reluctance to raise taxes, even incrementally, can be blamed for the city's fiscal mess, larger events included a global pandemic, a racist massacre at an East Side grocery store, and the increasing frequency of debilitating storms have compromised the city's outlook in even more widespread ways. As Ryan takes office, he faces a stagnant downtown core, with restaurant and other business closures being announced with disturbing regularity. A housing affordability crisis as dilapidated structures and vacant lots continue to plague the city's east side, and the prospect of federal actions that could undercut his goals, such as the Trump administration's attacks on asylum seekers who in the past have strengthened the city's population and workforce. Importantly, Ryan ended his brief address with a call for collaboration. There is no silver bullet in the shape of one leader who can solve all Buffalo's problems. As Ryan said, I look forward to working closely with the Common Council, listening respectfully, debating honestly, finding common ground, and then the same spirit of collaboration and must extend beyond City Hall to our neighborhoods, to workers, to faith leaders, to nonprofits, and to businesses. It would be beneficial if the Common Council was in full collaboration in municipal decisions, especially fiscal decisions. Where were they when every budget depended on one-shot revenues and taxes were kept artificially low? The participation of nonprofits is already underway. The Community Foundation announced in December that it would manage a City of Buffalo Transition and Transformation Fund to supplement the salaries of leadership positions and improve efficiency through paying for studies and consulting work. At the end of the day, Ryan and his team will have to sell the people of Buffalo on the improvements they make, both visible and behind the scenes. Buffalonians believe in their football team with alacrity. They need to show that same willingness to believe in their city.
Thank you, Larry. The editorial cartoons, the first one's by Adam Zeigler of the Buffalo News, and it shows Uncle Sam, and he's got the rubber band around the upper portion of his arm, getting some blood work done. And the blood work, it looks like it's an infusion of, shall we say, Venezuelan oil. The syringe is designed to be a small barrel, an oil barrel, and it's labeled Venezuelan oil. And the headline reads, "It's about the drugs." And the second cartoon is by Michael Ramirez of Creator Syndicate. And it shows Uncle Sam. Well, it's titled New Year's Resolutions. And it's Uncle Sam, and he's very obese, and he's in his bedroom, and he has a treadmill, which he's walking very, very slowly. He's very obese, and he has all sorts of food in his arms. There's a hamburger, a milkshake, there's chips, there's puffs, and some of them are called chips spending, and then there's spending on the pizza box. And like I said, folks, it's titled New Year's Resolutions. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Everybody's column. NFTA buses are often unreasonably late. On Christmas Eve, I waited for 1 hour in cold, 27-degree weather at the Buffalo State University bus stop for an outbound number 3 bus to come. 2 inbound buses going the other way passed by before, after over 1 hour, an outbound number 3 bus finally arrived. This situation has happened before. Passengers expect buses to show up and be on time, i.e. within a few minutes of the scheduled time. Of course, occasional delays occur, heavy traffic, red lights, unexpected detours, etc. But consistent, regular delays are unreasonable. If a bus is too early, punctual passengers will miss the bus and be forced to wait for it 20 to 25 minutes for the next bus to come. If a bus is unreasonably late again, punctual passengers will be forced to wait. Neither situation is acceptable during cold and or inclement weather. Nowadays, in Buffalo winter weather, one could freeze to death waiting for some NFTA buses. Is there any quality control in NFTA's bus service? Buffalo deserves much better. This from Stephen Garou of Buffalo.
Thank you, Larry. Fan of the Year is a real honor. I am writing to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who voted for me as a Fan of the Year, abbreviated FOTY, FOTY, for the Buffalo Bills. This honor holds special significance for me, not just as an individual fan, but as a proud representative of the incredible Buffalo Bills community. Your support means the world to me, and I am truly honored to be recognized among such passionate and dedicated fans. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to the Buffalo Bills organization for fostering such a fantastic culture that unites fans both locally and globally. It's exhilarating to be part of a community that embodies loyalty, camaraderie, and an unwavering love for our team. As a Buffalo Bills FOTY, I am now a finalist in the NFL Ultimate Fan Award, announced on February 5th at the prestigious Honors Award ceremony in San Francisco. This is a dream come true, and I am thrilled at the opportunity to represent not only Western New York, but also all NFL fans around the globe. The award is about ultimate passion, loyalty, community spirit, and using football fandom as a force for good. Thank you once again to everyone who has supported me. Let's continue to rally behind our team. Go Bills. And this is written by Therese Fortin Barnes of Buffalo. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Attacks on trans people are not Christian. I was born and brought up in a Christian household where how I treated others was dictated by the Golden Rule. That approach to others, treating them with respect and kindness as I would want to be treated, has stuck with me now and in my 8th decade. I am amazed at the outrageous attacks on trans kids and trans adults, not only by the Christian right, but also by our Republican leaders in government. They are looking to eliminate all supports, medical, social, and legal, which trans folks now enjoy. They are trying to eradicate from the country all trans folks, not because they are bad people, dangerous, or terrorists, but because they see themselves as different from other people. Why that is any concern of the presidency or Congress is not clear to me. Perhaps engaging in this culture war serves to distract the country from many of the other issues currently. I do not believe that the majority of our population supports the Republican approach. It is important to let our leaders know how we feel both now and next December. This is from Russ Vaughn of Clarence Center.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:33. Some opinion columns. This one is Another Voice, and it's about technology. And it's written by Gleb Trispersky, Ph.D., who serves as the CEO of the Future of Work consultancy Disaster Avoidance Experts. Don't leave calculations from AI to chance. Picture a budget meeting at a city agency or a corporate boardroom. A generative AI system drafts a cash flow projection, summarizes a long policy memo, and suggests a pricing tweak or benefits change. The prose looks polished, charts look clean, and a single percentage point buried in the model quietly pushes a decision in a different direction. Managers move on, unaware that the math underneath is wrong. The team behind Omni Calculator built the ORCA, O-R-C-A, benchmark to test this risk and found that no leading model scored above 63% on real-world calculation tasks. For public agencies spending taxpayers' money and businesses accountable to shareholders, the safe assumption is simple. Treat AI-generated numbers as drafts that must be checked, not figures that go straight into policy or strategy. Harvard researchers call this pattern the jagged technological frontier of AI. Their study shows that AI capability spikes and dips across activities rather than rising smoothly with difficulty. That means ordinary users cannot easily guess when Gen AI is reliable. The U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology warns in its generative AI risk profile that these systems confabulate, producing fluent but false content. A Reuters analysis of AI assistant errors chronicles widespread factual problems. Without explicit training, civil servants risk assuming that a system that writes like an expert also counts like one. The right response is not to walk away from generative AI, but to combine it with deterministic tools and human oversight. Leaders can require that AI-generated figures be validated by an analyst or a calculator engine such as an APY calculator. The Orca team urges users in its benchmark report to treat AI calculated numbers as drafts, not final answers. That guidance aligns with the jagged frontier insight. Use Gen AI to interpret messy questions and sketch scenarios while routing high-stakes math through tools that guarantee the calculation. As AI becomes embedded in everything from city service portals to corporate treasury dashboards, the winners will be the institutions that understand exactly when to trust the model and when to reach for a calculator and a well-trained human instead. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Following is from Jonah Goldberg. Republicans facing some big questions to tackle this year. Are the Republicans going the way of the Whigs? During Donald Trump's first term, this question was asked a lot. The answer then? No. But 1 year into a second term, it's worth revisiting the question, not so much because the answer is different this time, but because the question illuminates how much our politics have changed in the last decade. The Whigs were one of the two major American parties from the 1830s to the mid-1850s. We'll return to them in a moment. A decade ago, the conversation about the Whigs centered on Trump dividing the GOP. Republican politicians would periodically defy or criticize the Trump White House. More relevant members of the non-MAGA GOP establishment in Congress and in the White House itself constrained Trump and often shaped policy. A year into the second Trump administration, things look very different. Now his personality unifies the coalition, while issues divide it. This administration is monolithically MAGA. The same largely holds for the broader network of politicians, apparatchiks, and right-wing influencers. Trump's approval ratings among the broader public are reaching historic lows, but roughly 9 in 10 Republicans still approve of him. Pledging fealty and support for Trump is a requirement in Republican primaries. But on issues such as trade, Ukraine and Israel, abortion, and to some extent immigration, the Republican coalition is like a cracked windshield. Some splits are generational, as with Israel and even anti-Semitism. Other divisions are driven by new GOP voters Trump brought into the coalition. So what does this have to do with the Whigs? For starters, the Whig Party was formed to oppose a Trump-like president, Andrew Jackson, a.k.a. King Andrew I. Opposition to Jackson's Caesarism united a diverse coalition under the Whig banner. When Jackson's presidency ended and he faded away, the glue holding the coalition together dissolved, and issues divided the Whigs. I say issues, but really it was just one issue, slavery. Slavery divided the Whigs irreparably, so the Whigs died and the newly minted Republican Party took their place. A lesson is here for both parties. When Jackson dominated politics, he defined Democrats and Whigs alike. The Whigs tried to paint Jackson's successors as wannabe dictators too, and Democrats wanted to transfer Jackson's cult of personality to his Democratic successors. Both sides failed. Jackson's polarizing qualities were unique to him. The ongoing effort on the MAGA right to pre-coronate Vice President Vance as the next MAGA avatar and the GOP presidential nominee reeks of the desperation that comes with the realization that Trump's popularity, like Jackson's, is not naturally transferable. Claims by Vance notwithstanding, Trump successfully remade the GOP by applying a singular purity test, loyalty to Trump. Unlike in his first term, support for Trump papers over deep divisions on issues. When he goes away the way of Jackson, those divisions will remain. But just as important, opposition to Trump masks similar divisions on the left. Perhaps the biggest division among Democrats today is over whether the party's leader are resisting Trump sufficiently. No single issue divides Americans the way slavery did in the 1850s, and that's a good thing. Unlike some MAGA hotheads, I'd like to avoid a civil war. Also, neither party is poised to go the way of the Whigs, in part because the two-party duopoly over election laws and ballot access is a huge barrier to entry for third parties. But as 2026 begins, the coalitions of both parties look too fragile to survive the post-Trump era intact.
Thank you, Larry. Some business and financial news. Bank of America building eyed for $50 million renovation. For more than 40 years, the nine-story office building on the south end of Fountain Plaza has served as a regional bank headquarters and offices for professional firms. But now the Bank of America building, originally called the North Star Building, is about to undergo a $50 million transformation that will see it turned mostly into apartments. Simonelli Real Estate Corporation plans to convert the vast majority of the 180,000 square foot building into about 160 market rate apartments, a new ground floor restaurant, and other retail space. The exact number of apartments could vary by as many as 20 in either direction, depending on the final mix of studio, one-bedroom, two-bedroom, and some three-bedroom units that are included. The goal is to restore vibrancy to the mostly empty historic building, which currently has only 3 tenants, including the Bank of America Corporation, but to also bring a significant number of new residents to the city's downtown core, said Kyle Simonelli, president of the development company and son of CEO Paul Simonelli. The ground floor retail space would include a new restaurant at the southeastern corner that would face Roosevelt Plaza. We really want to model this after a full-service building where the tenants don't have to be as reliant on the surroundings because there isn't enough walkability yet, Kyle Simonelli said. We are motivated to provide a lot for the residents so they can have everything they need under one roof. Meanwhile, Bank of America will consolidate to the entire 20,000 square foot 9th floor, which it already occupies. It will give up part of the mezzanine level that it now leases, but it will still have an exclusive elevator from the lobby for its employees. However, the large first floor retail branch will also be reduced in scope, although that's still to be determined. It might end up being just an ATM at the end of the day, but you'll still have a way to get money out of Bank of America on the ground floor, Simonelli said. 2 other tenants, Culligan Law and the U.S. General Services Administration, are currently on month-to-month leases and would not be staying, he added. Simonelli called the redevelopment project a catalyst for change that builds on broader revitalization efforts around Fountain Plaza and the Theater District. That includes expansion projects by Shays Performing Arts Center, the expansion of Odo at Fountain Plaza, DeUval's University New Medical School on Delaware Avenue, and new programming by Buffalo Place and the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation. We've been working on the potential of this project for over 2 years now, Simonelli said, but we're at a phase where we feel at least confident enough to let the public know of our intentions. The cost of the substantial project is estimated slightly more than $50 million, Simonelli said, and would likely take 24 to 36 months of construction. However, the timeline is still uncertain, while the developer works to secure the rest of the financing. Developers have been struggling to pursue large projects in the last few years because of a post-pandemic combination of soaring construction costs, higher interest rates, and tighter loan underwriting that has made it harder to get financing. That's forced many firms, including Simonelli, to put many projects on hold except for tenant-driven commercial construction. But Simonelli said the financing market has improved somewhat, and the firm is confident it can obtain the money and complete the project. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Big Tech's data sites facing stiff opposition. Spring City, Pennsylvania. Tech companies and developers looking to plunge billions of dollars into ever bigger data centers to power artificial intelligence and cloud computing are increasingly losing fights in communities where people don't want to live next to them or even near them. Communities across the United States are reading about and learning from each other's battles against data center proposals that are fast multiplying in number and size to meet steep demand as developers branch out in search of faster connections to power sources. In many cases, municipal boards are trying to figure out whether energy and water-hungry data centers fit into their zoning framework. Some have entertained waivers or tried to write new ordinances. Some don't have zoning. But as more people hear about a data center coming to their community, once sleepy municipal board meetings in farming towns and growing suburbs now feature crowded rooms of angry residents pressuring local officials to reject the requests. A growing number of proposals are going down in defeat, sounding alarms across the data center constellation of big tech firms, real estate developers, electric utilities, labor unions, and more. Andy Svengros, who helped lead the data center practice at commercial real estate giant JLL, counted 7 or 8 deals he'd worked on in recent months that saw opponents going door to door, handing out shirts or putting signs in people's yards. It's becoming a huge problem, Svengros said. Data Center Watch, a project of 10A Labs and AI Security Consultancy, said it is seeing a sharp escalation in community, political, and regulatory disruption to data center development. Between April and June alone, its latest reporting period, it counted 20 proposals valued at $98 billion in 11 states that were blocked or delayed amid local opposition and state-level pushback. That amounts to 2/3 of the projects it was tracking. Some environmental and consumer advocacy groups say they're fielding calls every day and are working to educate communities on how to protect themselves. I've been doing this work for 16 years, worked on hundreds of campaigns, I'd guess, and this by far is the biggest kind of local pushback I've ever seen here in Indiana, he said. This was Brian Gustafson, the Indianapolis-based Citizen Action Coalition. For some people angry over steep increases in electric bills, their patience is thin for data centers, but that could bring still higher increases. Losing open space, farmland, forest, or rural character is a big concern. So the damage to quality of life, property values, or health by on-site diesel generators kicking on or the constant hum of servers. Others worry that wells and aquifers could run dry. Lawsuits are flying both ways over whether local governments violated their own rules. Even with high-level support from state and federal governments, the pushback is having an impact. Max Kossoff, Vice President of Investment at Chicago-based developer the Mistner Group, said developers worried about losing a zoning fight are considering selling properties once they secure a power source, a highly sought-after commodity that makes a proposal far more valuable and viable. And from Business Briefly, Lawley acquires Whitkin Scott Insurance Agency in Clarence. Lawley, a Buffalo-based insurance firm, has acquired Whitkin Scott Associates, a Clarence insurance agency. Terms of the deal, which were effective January 1st, were not announced. Whitkin Scott's 5 employees will join Lawley at the firm's offices at 361 Delaware Avenue. Joining Lawley enables us to provide our clients with expanded resources without compromising the personal relationships and local service they trust, said Harris Whitkin, president of Whitkin Scott Associates.
Thank you, Larry. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Bozzarelli, Ann M. Naglab. Deliere, Carol. Desmond, Mary Ann Rayhack. Donardo, John. Geyer, Ronald Nelson, Sr. Henneman, Denise A. Holt, Timothy. Hutchinson, Harold J. Hutch. Kohler, Marjorie Jean Wall. Lundberg, Lawrence Larry. Mazimic, Michael. Ole, Ronald. Ritzman, John. Sheehan, Mary J. Nay Noonan. Sheehy, Thomas J. Sterry, Charmaine P., née Sperazza, Taberski Gertrude M. Gertie, née Urbanski, Walkow Teresa A., née Hasselbauer, and James V. Glynn, 91, maid of the Miss Chairman, CEO. And let me see, another national obituary here. Michael Shoemaker, a Wisconsin author who produced a diverse array of works ranging from biographies of filmmaker Francis Ford Coppola and musician Eric Clapton to accounts of Great Lakes shipwrecks, has died. He was 75. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Royal Stars, happy birthday for Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. You are cheerful, affectionate, loyally, and generous. You are cherished by your friends. This year, exciting change will bring you increased freedom. Stay flexible. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. 5 dynamic, 4 positive, 3 average, 2 so-so, 1 difficult. Aries, 4 stars. Whether you're at work or doing any task that you set for yourself, your ability to talk to others is top-notch today. It's the perfect time to make your pitch to a boss. Tonight, work. Taurus, 5 stars. Such a romantic day. Do something special so you can savor romantic possibilities today. If you're in a relationship, make plans for a big date or a little date. Tonight, play. Gemini, 4 stars. Family discussions will go well today, especially about matters related to shared property, inheritances, taxes, debt, or the cost of home utilities or particular family expenses. Tonight, cocoon at home. Cancer, 4 stars. This is a fantastic day to schmooze. Don't go it alone today. Get out and chat with siblings, relatives, and neighbors. Tonight, study and learn. Leo, 4 stars. This is a good money day for you. You might see how to boost your earnings related to your work or your job. You might spend money to make your workspace look more attractive. Tonight, check your money. Virgo, 5 stars. This is an amazing day for your sign. The moon is in Virgo, dancing beautifully with Mercury, the Sun, Venus, and Mars. Whatever you want to do today will flow smoothly. Tonight, you've got this. Libra, 4 stars. What a strong focus on home and family right now. You will welcome a chance to work alone or behind the scenes so that you can catch your breath. Tonight, privacy. Scorpio, 4 stars. Conversations with siblings, relatives, neighbors, as well as clubs or organizations that you're involved with will be meaningful today. Tonight, enjoy friendships. Sagittarius, 4 stars. You make a fabulous impression on everyone today, which is why you might be able to do something that leads to a boost in your wealth. Tonight, you're admired. Capricorn, 5 stars. It's a great day to travel. You're eager to expand your world by seeing exciting places and meeting interesting people. Check out new opportunities tonight. Explore. Aquarius, 4 stars. Even though you might choose to work behind the scenes today, you're in an excellent position to negotiate financial matters related to inheritances or shared property. Tonight, check your finances. Pisces, 4 stars. It's a fantastic day to schmooze. You're popular today, and you might impress your partner or a friend by your ability to win over others. Tonight, listen.
Thank you, Larry. Some hints from Heloise. Enjoying flowers in the present. Dear Heloise, here is a novel idea my late mother once said to me. Why don't you give me flowers now when I can enjoy them, not when I'm dead and cannot? I found it rather sound advice. What say you? Thank you, from Daniel D. Daniel, I agree, and I think many of my readers do as well. Thank you for writing in. Cold water for blood. Dear Heloise, I, like many other senior citizens, take aspirin and blood thinners and suffer from occasional pop-up skin bleeds that get on my pants, shorts, or shirts. As soon as I notice the blood, I soak the garment in cold water and gently rub the affected area, and the stain is gone after soaking for 5 to 10 minutes. From Pete S. Pete, so many times I've advised readers to wash blood stains in cold water because hot water will set the stain. Thank you for this reminder. Charity income. Dear Heloise, recently I've seen a couple of columns where individuals question whether or not donations to charities are well used. For example, how much of it really goes to the charity? As someone who worked in the very important not-for-profit sector of our community for more than 30 years, the quick answer is that, of course, all your donation goes to the nonprofit/charity you select. It seems that the real concern about whether or not the individual nonprofit uses the donation wisely and as completely as possible to serve the cause you care about. There are a few well-known nonprofits that advertise themselves on TV and deserve to be questioned. However, the vast majority of nonprofit organizations keep their administrative/overhead costs as low as reasonably possible, under 25%, to direct the majority of their funds toward helping people in need, animals, or the environment. All nonprofits are required to submit a form called a 990 to the IRS detailing their revenue and expenses, and these are public records that are available either through the nonprofit itself and frequently posted on their website, or through an independent organization like Gander/GuideStar online. Most nonprofit or charities are well deserving of our support. That's from Patty C. And Dirty Dishes. Dear Heloise, I'm a longtime reader of your column, and it has been helpful and entertaining for over 50 years. Recently, we replaced our dishwasher, and a tip in the handbook was to turn on the hot water before starting the washer, which makes sense. Turns out I was not happy with the washing results of the new washer. There was a film on the glasses, coffee cups, plasticware, and inside of the dishwasher. After blaming the dishwasher, I started thinking about this problem and made a decision not to use Rinse Aid. I now use one soap pod in the bottom of the washer and one in the pod dispenser. The fantastic result was sparkling dishes and glasses, as well as a clean interior. Happy days. From Dennis.
Thank you, Linda. From the Digest, Trump cuts funding for needy families. President Donald Trump's administration said Tuesday it will withhold funding for programs that support needy families with children in 5 Democratic-led states over concerns about fraud. For too long, Democrat-led states and governors have been complicit in allowing massive amounts of fraud to occur under their watch, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services spokesperson Andrew Nixon said in a statement. 5 states were targeted: California, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, and New York. And from Texas, the Texas Teachers Union sues over retaliation. A Texas teachers union sued the state's education department Tuesday, accusing it of an improper wave of retaliation against public school employees over their social media comments following the assassination of conservative political activist Charlie Kirk. The lawsuit says the free speech rights of teachers and other school staff were violated by the Texas Education Agency and its commissioner, Mike Morath, because they directed local school districts to document what the education agency described as vile content posted online after Kirk was fatally shot in September. Despite calls for civility, some people who criticized Kirk after his assassination faced a backlash from Republicans who saw them as dishonoring him, leading to firings by university, sports teams, and media companies. And from Iran, protesters angry over Iran's ailing economy conducted a sit-in Tuesday at Tehran's Grand Bazaar, with security forces ultimately firing tear gas and displacing demonstrators as the market shut down. The protest represented a signal that demonstrations are likely to continue as the country's real currency fell to a record low Tuesday.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, January 7th on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today are
Larry Beenan
and Linda Ranella.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Linda Ranella.
and Larry Beanon.
On to some local and regional news. Comptroller Scanlon still fighting over city budget. Former Mayor Christopher Scanlon left office last week, but his feuding with City Comptroller Barbara Miller-Williams continues. Miller-Williams' office submitted a response to the Scanlon administration's first quarter budget gap report to the Buffalo Common Council this week. The document said Scanlon's administration severely underestimated the projected budget gap for the current fiscal year, which runs through the end of June. The comptroller expects a $42.7 million gap, far more than the $2.3 million gap projected by Scanlon's office. And that number could balloon to as much as $80.2 million if a series of uncertain revenues included in the budget put forth by Scanlon and passed by the council last year do not materialize. Key factors contributing to this projected deficit include lower than budgeted revenues and expenditure exceeding budgeted levels, according to the two-page report from the comptroller. Scanlon, who returned to his South District Council seat at the beginning of the year when Mayor Sean Ryan took office, challenged the accuracy of the comptroller's numbers. He said he's looking forward to hearing office staff explain the calculations at the Council Finance Committee meeting next week. It's wildly irresponsible to put these numbers out in public and to scare the public when it's not an accurate portrayal of an actual financial situation, Scanlon said. So I'm very much looking forward to the committee having that discussion. The Scanlon administration revenue projections for the year are nearly $21 million lower than those put forth by the comptroller's office, which used historical data to calculate its estimates according to the report. Conversely, we project that total expenditure and transfers will exceed the administration's forecast by $19.9 million, particularly due to under-budgeted overtime, fringe benefits, pension, and legal settlements, the report stated. The report also noted the $11 million budgeted in casino compact revenues, $26.5 million in revenues expected from the sale of city-owned parking ramps, revenue collected from the new city bed tax, and other uncertain revenue streams that could push that budget gap number higher. Scanlon, when pressed by the Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority on what the backup plan would be if any of these revenues did not materialize, told the control board his administration would engage in short-term borrowing in anticipation of those revenues should they not be collected by the end of the fiscal year. Scanlon has expressed confidence that all those revenues will come through by the end of the fiscal year. In previous years, the state has given casino compact money to municipalities before receiving it from the Seneca Nation of Indians, and the wheels are in motion for the sale of the parking ramps. The buildings were appraised for $46 million, above the $40 million included in the city's financial plan for this year and next 4 budget cycles. Scanlon expects those sales to be complete before July, he said. They put these numbers out. It's very misleading and alarming to the public, and it's quite frankly, it's got to stop, Scanlon said. Miller-Williams defended the numbers in her report in an emailed statement. The first quarter gap report represents a historical, in-depth analysis of the city finances for the first quarter of FY 25-26. This is subject to change of unforeseen revenues and expenditures during the remaining part of FY 25-26, she said. Ryan has said repeatedly that all options are on the table to close the ongoing structural deficits, including borrowing to close out this year's budget. Deputy Mayor Benjamin Swanekamp, in an interview with the News, said that Ryan's team began using public information to estimate deficits in the current fiscal year, and those included in the current 5-year financial plan shortly after winning the primary in June. They estimate the gap for the current fiscal year to be $17.4 million. If the dollar figure comes in close to where we're looking at it, there are an array of options to close that, including deficit financing, he said. Ryan, who comes to City Hall as a veteran of the state legislature, has also said he asked State Comptroller Thomas DiNapoli's office to come in and conduct an audit of the city's finances and has been in talks with Governor Kathy Hochul's office about aid packages to help the city as it gets its books in order. We're going to show New York State that we're serious about righting Buffalo's fiscal ship, but we need some time to hit a soft landing, Swanekamp said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Lavin seeks decorum at Amherst meetings. For the first 40 minutes of Sean Lavin's tenure as Amherst Town Supervisor, at least, civility reigned. Lavin's inaugural town board meeting in the supervisor's job featured none of the hostility that marked many sessions during the last year of predecessor Brian Culpa's term. The new supervisor had vowed during his campaign last year to seek a different tone at board meetings in upstate's most populous town. Monday night, he said he will set and enforce new expectations for decorum during town board public expression periods. Monday's reorganizational meeting featured the seating of Lavin and 2 new town board members, appointments to prominent town positions, and the mundane business of beginning a new year in town government. There were few public speakers, and all who did address the board were cordial, even those who persistently criticized Amherst Democrats in the past. We can disagree on a lot of things. That's good. I think that's a healthy democracy, Lavin said during the meeting. But we will not insult, cheer, or yell because we've been disagreeing with somebody at that podium. They deserve respect. Monday's board agenda was uncontroversial, and Lavin and the other 4 board members moved briskly through the various appointments and housekeeping items. How briskly? What did you think of that meeting, huh? Lavin asked a reporter afterward. 40 minutes. Culpa was prohibited by term limits from seeking a 3rd term in office. Lavin, previously a town board member and deputy town supervisor, defeated Republican business owner Dan Gagliardo in last November's election for town supervisor. The new supervisor, whose term began January 1st, was joined at the meeting by new board members John B. Davis and Jack Kavanaugh, both Democrats like Lavin. Davis is a senior energy project manager with Wendell Companies and Amherst's first black town board member, while Kavanaugh is executive director of the LGBTQ plus youth nonprofit GLYS, Western New York. They filled the seats previously held by Lavin and Jacqueline Berger, both barred from seeking re-election to the town board because of term limits. 2 notable appointments became official Monday. Lavin named board member Angela Marinucci as deputy supervisor, a selection that wasn't subject to a town board vote, and the board approved Lavin's choice of Jessica O'Neill as his chief of staff. O'Neill replaces Joseph McMahon, who served in the role throughout Culpa's 8 years in office. Lavin told the Buffalo News later that McMahon left town government for a position in the administration of new Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan. Jessica is incredibly knowledgeable, and she's got a full understanding of town government, where we are with projects. Her subject matter expertise on where we're going as a town is second to none, Lavin said. O'Neill most recently served as communications coordinator with the supervisor's office. Megan Winnert, a grants coordinator in the town's economic development department, will take over O'Neill's public relations responsibilities when she joins the supervisor's office as executive assistant, Lavin said. One resident did complain cordially about some of those personnel moves within the Amherst Municipal Building. Joseph Voidovich, who regularly clashed with Culpa and the town board, questioned why spending in the town supervisor's office has risen from $212,000 in 2017 to nearly $330,000 in 2026, when the supervisor's pay has remained flat over this time. Seems like people are being shipped around all the time to get more money, Voidovich said. But the meeting featured little of the intense criticism from speakers seen recently. Vitriol that followed an 11.4% property tax levy increase approved for the 2024 town budget. The topics brought up Monday by residents included praise for town employees for their efforts during last week's winter weather events, a question about parliamentary procedure, and opposition to plans for a new Sikh house of worship and community center on Gurdwara eyed for a 1-acre parcel at North French and Hopkins Roads. Lavin on Monday described his new approach to managing the public comment period. In addition to seeking more civility, he said public expression is not an opportunity for back-and-forth debate with board members. Many questions from residents will need to wait until later to get responses, Lavin said. At the conclusion of Monday's forum, Lavin answered some queries from audience members but did not directly address others. And he urged one speaker to follow up with him about his request for an additional public hearing on the House of Worship. Mr. Baker, I would ask maybe you stop by after this meeting, Levin said. I'd be happy to engage with you in some kind of email correspondence because it's not a conversation for the chambers, but I'm happy to communicate further with you.
Thank you, Larry. Sheriff's Office releases internal Granville report. It took the Erie County Sheriff's Office just as long to release its internal investigation into Daniel D.J. Granville as it did to conduct it. Granville, chief of narcotics for the Sheriff's Office, was suspended last year for 30 days after pleading guilty to a misdemeanor in connection with a series of crashes into 7 parked vehicles on Buffalo's west side in April 2024. That suspension, according to the newly released Sheriff's Office documents, came for 2 violations of department rules. The first was not immediately reporting to Under Sheriff William Cooley that he crashed his unmarked county-owned pickup late on April 11, 2024. Sheriff John Garcia publicly acknowledged that violation in October. Granville also drew the suspension for unbecoming conduct for pleading guilty in Buffalo City Court to a misdemeanor of reckless driving, according to the Sheriff's Office report on its internal investigation. Conduct unbecoming of an employee shall include conduct that brings the office into disrepute or reflects discredit upon the employee as a member of the Sheriff's Office, or that which impairs the operation or efficiency of the office or the employee, according to the Sheriff's Office internal report on Granville's conduct. Granville also pleaded guilty to a traffic infraction in court for leaving the scene of a property damage crash, but that admission did not lead to an unbecoming conduct charge against him. The report obtained by the Buffalo News dated August 15th, the same day Granville pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 50 hours of community service and fined $550, sustained the 2 charges against Granville. The News obtained a copy of the report from the Sheriff's Office on Saturday through a request from the Freedom of Information Law. The report was provided in response to the News' second request, filed October 11th for Granville's disciplinary records. Along with the documents provided to the News, the Sheriff's Office also sent a bill for $62.50 for 2.5 hours of pay for an employee to extract the reports. In total, the News received a 4-page investigative report and 2 letters from the Professional Standards Division to Granville from April and August regarding his administrative leave and later suspension. The bill sent to the News was lower than the one sent to WGRZ-TV for the same documents. The Sheriff's Office billed the station $62.50, the same charge for staff time to extract reports, plus another $15 fee. That fee is because WGRZ requested a paper copy of the report, while the News requested an electronic copy, spokesman Christopher Horvatitz said. WGRZ's FOIL request, a copy of which was reviewed by the News, doesn't ask for a paper copy of the records. The internal investigation report says Garcia ordered a 30-day suspension the same day Granville pleaded guilty and the internal review was completed. Garcia's office didn't announce a suspension until August 19th. The Professional Standards Division of the Sheriff's Office reached its finding on August 15th and sent Granville a letter notifying him of his unpaid suspension. The letter, a copy of which was released following a News FOIL request, did not specify the length of the suspension. Although the report was dated August 15th, the Professional Standards Division investigation had been ongoing for many months, Horvatitz said. Horvatitz on Monday said he did not have available a blow-by-blow of what was done as part of the investigation. After speaking with county legislators about the matter at the end of October, Garcia said he wasn't sure how many people were interviewed as part of his office investigation. The internal investigation was handled by Neil Held, Chief of Professional Standards for the Sheriff's Office. Cooley, the undersheriff, sustained both charges, finding that the allegations of misconduct is supported by a preponderance of the evidence, according to the report. The News filed an earlier FOIL request for records August 21st, 2 days after Granville's suspension was announced. That request was denied September 25th, citing the Niagara County District Attorney's ongoing investigation into the case. Granville recently reached an agreement with Erie County to pay nearly $76,000 in restitution for the damage done to his pickup and the other vehicles. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Orchard Park gets $120,000 to create stadium safety plan. Improvements could include wider sidewalks, enhanced crosswalks. The town of Orchard Park is getting federal funding that will help develop a plan to improve pedestrian, bicycle and motorist safety around Highmark Stadium. The town has been awarded $120,000 from the U.S. Department of Transportation to develop a plan to assess existing conditions and recommend targeted infrastructure improvements. That could include wider sidewalks, upgraded curb ramps, and enhanced crosswalks with an emphasis on reducing fatal and serious injury crashes. Orchard Park officials have considered rezoning the area around the stadium over the past few years. The town has proposed the creation of a stadium mixed-use zone, which will encompass an area extending out about 1,000 feet around the stadium property that's mostly vacant. That area will have an emphasis on public safety measures and walkability, including the building of sidewalks on Abbott Road, buildings in the zone that can also be no higher than 2.5 stories in the areas closest to the over $2 billion stadium scheduled to open in July. Hundreds of thousands of fans travel to Orchard Park each season, and this important funding will help keep residents and visitors safe as they travel to and around Highmark Stadium, Orchard Park Supervisor Joe Liberty said. The Safe Streets Action Plan will include an inventory of current road and pedestrian conditions, design recommendations, project phasing, and an implementation roadmap. These findings will guide future infrastructure investments and help improve safety and accessibility. The construction of this new stadium represents a transformational opportunity, said U.S. Representative Nick Langworthy, who helped the town get the grant. It is critical for the surrounding infrastructure, keeps residents, visitors, and fans safe, he said. The federal investment will help Supervisor Joe Liberty and the town of Orchard Park plan smart, common sense, and safety improvements that benefit the community on game days and year-round. Liberty previously said it is important to create momentum for the area next year while stadium construction is being finished to set the stage for future development. Without that, Liberty fears there could be little to no development in the area, as has been the case since the Bills moved to Orchard Park in 1973. Orchard Park officials hired LaBella Associates with state funding to complete a stadium area development study that evaluated the potential impacts of the stadium and the immediate area around it and the northwest section of the town.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:17. On to sports. Sports shorts first. Last night at home, the Buffalo Sabres defeated Vancouver Canucks 5-3, and their next game is the Sabres play at the New York Rangers tomorrow. And Venus Williams lost her first singles match of 2026 to fifth-seeded Magda Linette at the WTA Tour Tournament in Auckland, New Zealand. Williams, 45, put up a superb show before losing 6-4, 4-6, 6-2 to the number 52 ranked Linette, who was only 2 years old when Williams played her first professional singles match. Tuesday's match was Williams' 1,101st in singles on the WTA Tour. Williams will head to Australia for the Hobart International and the Australian Open. The 7-time major champion received wildcard entries into the Auckland tournament and also in Hobart from January 12th and at the first Grand Slam tournament of the year at Melbourne Park. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Sabres goal, keep winning ways at home. Improved club to see more time at KeyBank Center. The Buffalo Sabres' run of 10 consecutive wins is well in the rearview mirror. The Sabres crossed the halfway mark of the 82-game season against the Vancouver Canucks on Tuesday at KeyBank Center, and the Sabres moved into a new phase. Grasp what worked and what made the team effective and successful over the course of the last month, and sustain that as the second half unfolds. The Sabres are suddenly in reach of a rare playoff berth as of Tuesday morning, after a 20-point surge from December 9th to 31st. Ahead of facing Vancouver, the Sabres had 46 points and tied for fourth in the Eastern Conference wildcard standings with Boston, the New York Rangers, and New Jersey. Buffalo was also tied for fifth in the Atlantic Division with the Bruins, tied for 10th in the Eastern Conference with Boston, the Devils, and Rangers, and locked at a 6-way tie for 13th in the NHL. The team record-tying win streak wasn't just about earning points either. It's become a lesson for growth. The Sabres recognize what they need to do to continue that momentum and that consistency they developed. Josh Doan looked back nearly a month after the Sabres' 4-3 overtime win at Edmonton on December 9th that kicked off the turnaround. He considers the game a microcosm for what the Sabres are cultivating. We all laugh at it now, how it started in Edmonton, and we were up 3-0, and we blew a 3-goal lead with 1 second left and found a way to win that one, said Doan, who has 12 goals and 15 assists in 40 games in his first season with the Sabres. From here, it's find a way to win. We were outplaying teams, and there's a game in Edmonton where you find ways to win, and you learn how to win game. The next step? Captain Rasmus Dahlin said it best after Saturday's 5-1 loss at Columbus. This is where the Sabres need to find out if they're a quality team. 2 days later, the defenseman finished the first practice at the start of the stretch in which the Sabres will play 6 of 7 at KeyBank Center, where they are 15-5-2, and elaborated. It's the mental side of the bounce back, Dahlin said. We had a really good run, and now it's a matter of if we can bounce back and do it again. We got us back into a good spot, and now we have to just continue to be a top team in the league. We can't be satisfied with what we just did. We've got to be better. We've got to be way better. By the numbers, here are some of the areas in which the Sabres stood out during the streak. They averaged 15.4 block shots per game, including 27 in a 3-2 win December 11th at Vancouver. The penalty kill was 20 for 24. The Sabres took an average of 2.4 penalties per game. The Sabres were down by at least a goal in the final 6 games of the 10-game winning streak before rallying to win. The Sabres are 6-4 in 2-goal games and 7-0-4 in 1-goal games. Prior to the win at Edmonton, they were 2-4 in 2-goal games and 3-0-4 in 1-goal games. The Sabres also learned the value of control and response. As a group, we put aside individual stats and a little bit, and it was one of those where you can't take risks when you've got a lead, Doan said. You can't force plays in certain times in a game. It's a maturity thing that I think as a group we learned in those 10 games. Dahlin saw how his team improved its defensive game, whether it was through the forecheck and the backcheck. Sabres coach Lindy Ruff also sees room for improvement. You've got to be ready to flat out outwork the other team, Ruff said. You think you can outskill them? There's skill everywhere. We've got to be ready to put the work in. That means out backchecking, which has been a strong suit for us. Where to make up ground. The Sabres took on Vancouver without 2 of their top defensemen. Connor Timmins is on injured reserve after sustaining a broken leg December 18th in a 5-3 win against Philadelphia, and Michael Kesselring, lower body injury, did not skate Monday in practice or Tuesday during the morning skate. The power play was to get a boost when left wing Jason Zucker returns to the lineup. 5 of Zucker's 9 goals in 21 games this season are with the man advantage, and the power play unit hasn't scored since Dahlin's tally in a 3-2 shootout win on December 20th against the New York Islanders. The Sabres are also 0 for 15 on the power play over the last 6 games, including 0 for 5 Saturday versus the Blue Jackets. The goaltending also needs stability and consistency after Alex Lyon sustained a lower body injury in the third period of a 4-2 win December 29th at St. Louis. Lyon was in goal for 7 wins during the streak. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen had a near masterful outing on New Year's Eve at Dallas, where the Sabres held the Stars to 1 goal on 28 shots. Luukkonen gave up 4 goals on 30 shots on Saturday in Columbus. There's no team you can point to and say, this is going to be an easier one tonight, Ruff said. We've got to put the work in. We've got to be ready to continue to play the way we've been playing. Playing behind the other team, manage the puck, and when we manage the puck well, we're a tough team to play against. Dahlin, though, considered the road ahead, starting against Vancouver, a team that began the week having lost 5 of its last 6 games. There's no easy games anymore, Dahlin said.
Thank you, Larry. Tough road to hoe. Bills' Super Bowl hopes start against defensive-minded Jags. Thrilling victories and heartbreaking losses over the past several seasons transformed the Buffalo Bills into a resilient team that can make exceptional plays in the biggest moments. The road ahead will be challenging, though. If the Bills are going to win Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, California, they'll need to accomplish a feat only 5 other teams have achieved since the wild card playoff system began in 1970. The 1985 New England Patriots, the 2005 Pittsburgh Steelers, 2007 New York Giants, 2010 Green Bay Packers, and 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the only teams to win 3 games on the road to reach the Super Bowl. Buffalo has not won a playoff game on the road since Sean McDermott became coach in 2017. Getting to the NFL's penultimate game isn't the goal. The Bills, 12-5, want to win it all, and their path begins at 1 p.m. Sunday in Jacksonville, Florida, and against the third-seeded Jaguars. Here are some matchups to watch as Buffalo prepares for its 7th consecutive trip to the postseason. Strength versus strength. The NFL's best rushing offense will square off against the best rushing defense. The Jaguars' top-rated run defense allowed 100-plus yards just 5 times in 17 regular season games, and it doesn't need to stack the box to stymie opponents. Jacksonville deployed a light box, 6 or fewer defenders on 44.2% of run plays, the 9th highest rate in the NFL according to Next Gen Stats. It gave up just 85.9 yards per game and the third fewest runs of 100-plus yards, 34. None of the Jaguars' opponents ran the ball like the Bills, though. James Cook won the rushing title with 1,621 yards, and he became the only player in franchise history to rush at least 2,500 yards and 25 touchdowns over the span of 2 seasons. In the 2025 regular season, Buffalo ranked first in rushing yards per game, second in rushing yards per play, second in rushes of 10-plus yards, third in next-gen stats success rate, and third in yards before contact per attempt. You can't forget about James Cook, Jaguars linebacker Devin Lloyd said Monday in Jacksonville. He's obviously a great player, led the league in rushing. He's just a really good back, and it's a number 1 rush defense versus number 1 rush offense. Stopping Lawrence. This will be the most difficult test the Bills' pass defense has faced since Week 14 when the Cincinnati Bengals' Joe Burrow threw for 284 yards and 4 touchdowns. Bills' pass defense ranks first in yards per game, in part because opponents prioritize the run against the Bills, but their secondary has improved throughout the season. Christian Benford and Tyrone Johnson got healthy. Jordan Power replaced Taylor Rapp, who suffered a knee-ending knee injury. Cole Bishop developed into an excellent safety. DeTravis White kept getting better, and Maxwell Harrison returned from a knee injury, but the Bills' depth at boundary cornerback took a hit in the regular season finale when Harrison suffered an ankle injury. The Jaguars have 3 receivers whom Buffalo must respect: Brian Thomas Jr., Jacoby Myers, and Parker Washington. Inconsistency is a problem for Jacksonville quarterback Trevor Lawrence, but he has an outstanding finish to the season. During the Jaguars' 8-game win streak, Lawrence completed 62.7% of his passes for 2,009 yards with 24 total touchdowns and 5 interceptions, with 3 coming in 1 game. His totals for the season would be better if Jaguars didn't lead the league with 45 dropped passes. The Bills' defense will need to be disciplined in how it rushes Lawrence and covers his pass catches because he can hurt you with his legs. Only 5 quarterbacks had more scrambles than Lawrence this season. Buffalo allowed 8.72 yards per quarterback scramble, according to Summer Sports. Edge rushers can't contain. Covering receivers man-to-man is risky against a quarterback like Lawrence. They can't let him get comfortable either. The Bills need left tackle Dion Dawkins' best effort this week. His assignment will be to block Jaguars edge rusher Josh Allen, who totals 8 sacks with 12 tackles and a loss in 17 games. Hines Allen lined up on the right side of Jacksonville's defensive line for nearly 75% of his snaps in the regular season, and his 80 quarterback pressures were tied for the fourth most in the NFL. The talent in their front seven allows the Jaguars to blitz at the 20th highest rate in the NFL. Dawkins, meanwhile, ranks second in the NFL's and ESPN's pass block win rate, but Pro Football Focus credited him with the second most sacks he's allowed in his 9-season career. Deion takes so much pride in being Josh Allen's left tackle, and he knows that comes with being a left tackle is going against the best defensive ends in the NFL, and Josh Hines Allen is one of them, said Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady. It's a task that I know for the best of the best we're always up for. And unleashing Allen, ? The Jaguars' defense ranked second in next-gen stats expected points added allowed per pass attempt, but they faced a backup or rookie quarterback in 6 of their final 7 games. Jacksonville has not faced an elite quarterback since October 19th, when the Rams' Matthew Stafford threw 5 touchdown passes to beat the Jaguars 35-7. Over the past 4 postseasons, Allen completed 68.4% of his passes for 2,278 yards with 26 total touchdowns and 3 interceptions in 9 games. He typically shows up and makes critical plays at critical moments, and that's why he's been an MVP candidate for a long time, Cohen told reporter in Jacksonville when asked about Allen. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. Bonas Bowen showing off an improved jump shot. When foot surgery cut short Deontay Bowen's first year at St. Bonaventure, the point guard used his time off the court to prepare for his return. One thing Bowen noticed while injured was his lack of a jump shot. He has improved his three-point shooting and in recent games after a slow start to the season. A 6'2" redshirt junior, Bowen already has made more threes across Bona's last 5 games than any season of his career. I think him getting hurt last year, I think he saw one of the deficiencies or weaknesses in his game was his jump shooting. Bona coach Mark Schmidt said guys would go underneath his ball screens all the time, so he knew that was something that he needed to improve on. Bowen's shot is better. Bowen has made 5 3-pointers and is shooting 42% in Bona's last 5 games. His 5 threes are the most of his career. As a freshman and sophomore at Iowa, Bowen made 4 threes each season. He arrived at St. Bonaventure for the 24-25 season and made 4 threes before his injury 10 games in. In Bowen's return this winter, he began 0 for 7 in the first 9 games from behind the arc before making 5 of 12 since. Bowen began his hot shooting stretch by making 2 of 5 of his threes when the Bonnies defeated previously unbeaten Buffalo on December 6. The offseason, he did that, and he's gotten better at it, Schmidt said. He can knock down that open 3 now and give him confidence that teams can't go underneath the ball screens all the time. But he's just got to be selective. When he's open, knock it down. When he isn't, he's driving and making other guys better. Schmidt said Bowen is improving in all phases over the last 5 games. Bowen is averaging 13.8 points and 5.2 assists. The stretch includes tying his career high of 17 points against Ohio and recording a career high 9 assists against Colgate. For the season, Bowen is averaging 8.8 points, 4.2 assists, and 3.2 rebounds through 14 games. He's shooting 87% from the free throw line and 39% from the field. Last season with the Bonnies, Bowen averaged 11.1 points and 4.2 assists. At Iowa, Bowen started 9 games in 2 seasons and averaged 3.7 points. DeSante is playing better, Schmidt said. He got hurt the 10th game of the year last year, so he had a lot of time where he didn't play and it took him some time to get back. He's worked on his shot. His shot is better. But he's a point guard, and the point guard has got to lead the team and set the whole table for other guys, and when things open up, he can score. When things don't, he can distribute the ball, and that's what we need him to do. Bowen and Buddy. Darryl Buddy Simmons II has been a great addition in St. Bonaventure's backcourt. Simmons is a spark plug and 3-level scorer. The 5'11" junior from Gardner-Webb is averaging 15.1 points per game and leads the team with 34 three-pointers and 41% shooting. He scored 22 points in last week's loss to VCU. Simmons' 44 assists are second to Bowen's 59. Star forward Frank Mitchell can pass too. He's third on the team with 36 assists. But the Toronto native is one of America's best rebounders. Mitchell is averaging 17.1 points and 54% shooting from the field, and his 11-point rebounds rank 7th in the country. His 5.1 offensive rebounds per game are number 1 in the nation. St. Bonaventure hosts 2 Atlantic 10 contests this week at Riley Center. The Bonnies, 11-3, 0-1 Atlantic 10 play Richmond 11-4, 1-1 at 7 p.m. Wednesday. Then Fordham 9-6, 0-2 at noon Saturday. Bonna's 3 losses were to number 16 North Carolina on the Fort Myers tip-off, an overtime loss at Ohio, and an 89-82 setback at VCU in its A10 opener.
Thank you, Larry. You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 10:35. On to Asking Eric. Couple disagrees on whether to charge house guests. Dear Eric, my wife and I own a guest house up the street from our home. When we're not using it for ourselves, my wife rents it out on Airbnb. The Airbnb guests pay a nightly rate and also pay a cleaning fee, which we use to pay the cleaning staff after they check out. I like to let friends from out of town stay there for free when they're visiting. My wife is okay with not charging them a nightly rate, but thinks we should charge them the cleaning fee because we still have to pay to have the unit cleaned after they leave. I disagree. I don't like taking money from friends at all. We're financially successful, so we don't need the money. Being generous to my friends and family is part of my personality. It feels wrong to me to ask friends to pay a cleaning fee. My wife and I rarely argue, but we can't seem to agree on this. What do you think? From Generous Husband. Dear husband, neither of you is wrong per se. Your wife doesn't want to end up paying for the privilege of hosting, which is fair. And you want to extend hospitality to your friends without strings. In this case, the solution may not be coming to an agreement. Instead, the best course of action is to find a compromise that doesn't cause resentment for either of you. If you don't want to ask your friends to pay, then see if there's another way that the cleaning fee can be covered. Perhaps visiting friends can take you out to dinner that costs the same amount, or if you and your wife have discretionary pots of money within your shared accounts, maybe you can volunteer to cover the cost of the cleaning. If hospitality is paramount for you, be creative about finding a way to do it and make that the focus of your conversations with your wife. Instead of both of you standing on your separate sides, ask each other what's in the middle. With disagreements like this, sometimes it's useful to say, we just see this differently, and that's fine. How can we work together to make sure that everyone gets what they want? Dear Eric, on December 6th, Leftovers Anyone wrote about her daughter's Friendsgiving overshadowing her own Thanksgiving. The letter read in part, I don't feel it as special as it was because now everyone has already had a traditional Thanksgiving meal that previously we only had that one time a year. I think I can give another way to look at this, or at least share my experience. My stepdaughter and her daughters were so tired of all the Friendsgiving parties that they attended that they didn't show up to our traditional Thanksgiving meal. They showed up hours later and literally ate leftovers. Clearly, my party and my side of the family was not a priority. Even the hospitality of sending food home with them was taken away from me, as their refrigerator and freezer were stuffed from their previous parties. I'm not sure that this is what children need to be taught, but I also think that is the future of Thanksgiving. From Change is Coming. Dear Change, I gently suggest that you're not helpless against the changing tide. You notice a pattern that seems to be in conflict with your hopes and expectations for the holiday. So for next year, you have the opportunity to talk about it with your daughters in advance and find a solution that makes everyone happy. Every holiday meal is, of course, about the food, but its primary purpose is togetherness as a family. As people change and family structures change, we have the power to change what that togetherness looks like and how it happens. It's important for you to sit at a table with your daughters and share a meal. From your letter, it's also important to extend hospitality to them in the form of leftovers. Now that the dust of the holidays has settled, talk to them about what's important to you and what's important to them, and see if together you can come up with a plan for next year that meets everyone's needs. It might mean that Thanksgiving changes a little bit on your side. Maybe there's fewer leftovers, for instance, but it also means that they're more aware of the impact of their actions and they plan their time better. Holidays don't just happen. I know you know this because you're putting a lot of work into it. It's good to talk to your loved ones about what you're doing and to include them in the work of making the holidays special for everyone, you included. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. The capture of Maduro threatens to crumble longtime world order. The Hague, Netherlands. From the smoldering wreckage of two catastrophic world wars in the last century, nations came together to build an edifice of international rules and laws. The goal was to prevent such sprawling conflicts in the future. That world order, centered at the UN headquarters in New York, near the courtroom where Nicolas Maduro was arraigned Monday after his removal from power in Venezuela, now appears in danger of crumbling as the doctrine of might makes right muscles its way back onto the global stage. UN Undersecretary General Rosemary A. DiCarlo told the body's Secretary Council, the Security Council, on Monday that the maintenance of international peace and security depends on the continued commitment of all member states to adhere to all the provisions of the UN Charter. President Trump insists that capturing Maduro was legal. His administration has declared the drug cartels operating from Venezuela to be unlawful combatants and said the U.S. is now in an armed conflict with them, according to an administration memo obtained in October by the Associated Press. The mission to snatch Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, from their home on a military base in the capital of Caracas means they face charges of participating in a narco-terrorism conspiracy. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Mike Waltz, defended the military action as a justified surgical law enforcement operation. The move fits into the Trump administration's national security strategy published last month that lays out restoring American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere as a key goal of his second term. But could it also serve as a blueprint for further action? Colombia. On Sunday evening, Trump also put Venezuela's neighbor, Colombia, and its leftist president, Gustavo Petro, on notice. In a back and forth with reporters, Trump said Colombia is run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and is selling it to the United States. The Trump administration imposed sanctions in October on Petro, his family, and a member of his government over accusations of involvement in the global drug trade. Colombia is considered the epicenter of the world's cocaine trade. Analysts from some world leaders, from China to Mexico, have condemned the Venezuela mission. Some voiced fears that Maduro's ouster could pave the way for more military interventions and a further erosion of the global legal order. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noel Barrot said the capture of Maduro runs counter to the principle of the non-use of force which forms the basis of international law. He warned the increasing number of violations of this principle by nations vested with the important responsibility of permanent membership on the United Nations Security Council will have serious consequences for global security and will spare no one. Here are some global situations that could be affected by changing attitudes on such issues. Ukraine. For nearly 4 years, Europe has been dealing with Russia's war of aggression in neighboring Ukraine, a conflict that grates against the eastern flank of the continent and the transatlantic NATO alliance, and has widely been labeled a grave breach of international law. The European Union relies deeply on U.S. support to keep Ukraine afloat, particularly after the administration warned that Europe must look after its own security in the future. Vasily Debenza, the Russian ambassador to the UN, said the mission to extract Maduro amounted to a turn back to the era of lawlessness by the United States. During the UN Security Council's emergency meeting, he called on the 15-member panel to unite to definitively reject the methods and tools of the U.S. military foreign policy. Volodymyr Vysenko, chairman of the board of the Petka think tank in Kiev, Ukraine, said Russian President Vladimir Putin has long undermined the global order and weakened international law. Unfortunately, he said, Trump's actions have continued this trend. Greenland. Trump fanned another growing concern for Europe when he openly speculated about the future of the Danish territory of Greenland. It's so strategic right now. Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place, Trump told reporters Sunday as he flew back to Washington from his home in Florida. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security, and Denmark is not going to be able to do it. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said in a statement that Trump has no right to annex the territory. She also reminded Trump that Denmark already provides the U.S., a fellow NATO member, broad access to Greenland through existing security agreements. Taiwan. The mission to capture Maduro has ignited speculation about a similar move China could make against the leader of Taiwan, Lee Ching-te. Just last week, in response to a U.S. plan to sell a massive military arms package to Taipei, China conducted 2 days of military drills around the island democracy that Beijing calls its own territory. Beijing, however, is unlikely to replicate Trump's action in Venezuela, which could prove devastating and debilitating and risky. Chinese strategy has been to gradually increase pressure on Taiwan through military harassment, propaganda campaigns, and political influence rather than single out Lai as a target. China looks to squeeze Taiwan into eventually accepting a status similar to Hong Kong and Macau, which are governed semi-autonomously on paper but have come under increasing central control. For China, Maduro's capture also brings a layer of uncertainty about Trump administration's ability to move fast, unpredictably, and audaciously against other governments. Beijing has criticized Maduro's capture, calling it a blatant use of force against a sovereign state, and saying Washington is acting as the world's judge. On Tuesday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said the United States had wantonly trampled on Venezuela's sovereignty and security. The Mideast. Israel's grinding attack on Gaza in the aftermath of October 7, 2023 attacks by Hamas underscored the international community's inability to stop a devastating conflict. The United States, Israel's staunchest ally, vetoed Security Council resolutions calling for ceasefires in Gaza. Trump already has demonstrated his willingness to take on Israel's neighbor and longtime U.S. adversary, Iran, over its nuclear program with military strikes on sites in Iran in June 2025. On Friday, Trump warned Iran that if Tehran violently kills peaceful protesters, the U.S. will come to their rescue. Violence sparked by Iran's ailing economy has killed at least 35 people, activists said Tuesday. Iran's foreign ministry condemned the illegal U.S. attack against Venezuela. Europe. The 27-nation European Union, another post-World War II institution intended to foster peace and prosperity, is grappling with how to respond to its traditional ally under the Trump administration. In a clear indication of the increasingly fragile nature of the transatlantic relationship, Trump's national security strategy painted the bloc as weak. While insisting Maduro has no political legitimacy, the EU said in a statement on the mission to capture him that the principles of international law and the UN Charter must be upheld, adding that members of the UN Security Council have particular responsibility to uphold those principles. But outspoken Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, a close Trump ally, spoke disparagingly about the role international law plays in regulating the behavior of countries. International rules, he said, do not govern the decisions of many great powers. This is completely obvious.
Thank you, Larry. Ukraine allies to provide security. Ukraine's allies said Tuesday they had agreed to provide the country with multi-layered international defensive guarantees as part of a proposal to end Russia's nearly 4-year-old invasion of its neighbor. At a key meeting in Paris, leaders from European countries and Canada, as well as U.S. representatives and top officials from the European Union and NATO, said they would provide Kyiv's frontline forces with equipment and training and back them up with air, land, and sea support to deter any future Russian attack. The size of the supporting forces was not made public, and many of the plan's details remain unclear. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the meeting made excellent progress, but cautioned that the hardest yards are still ahead, noting that Russian attacks on Ukraine continued. He said allies will participate in U.S.-led monitoring and verification of any ceasefire, support the long-term provision of armaments for Ukraine's defense, and work toward binding commitments to support Ukraine in the case of any future attack by Russia. There was no immediate comment from officials in Russia on Tuesday, which was the eve of Orthodox Christmas. Moscow has revealed few details of its stance in the U.S.-led peace negotiations. Officials have reaffirmed Russia's demands and have insisted there can be no ceasefire until a comprehensive settlement is agreed. Russian President Vladimir Putin has ruled out any deployment of troops from NATO countries on Ukrainian soil. Starmer added there can be only peace if Russia compromises, and Putin is not showing that he is ready for peace. In the event of a ceasefire, he said the UK and France will establish military hubs across Ukraine and build protected facilities for weapons and military equipment to support Ukraine's defensive needs. Ukrainian President Zelensky said progress was made in the talks, although commitments need to be ratified by each country so that they can be put in place after any settlement. We determined what countries are ready to take leadership in the elements of security guarantees on the ground, in the air, and at sea, and in restoration, Zelensky told a news conference in Paris. We determined what forces are needed. We determined how these forces will be operated and at what levels of command. He said details of how monitoring will work remain to be determined, as do the size and financing of the Ukrainian army. French President Emmanuel Macron said the security statement endorsed by Ukraine's allies is a significant step toward ending Russia's invasion. A joint statement said the allies also agreed to continue long-term military assistance and armament to Ukraine's armed forces, which will remain the first line of defense and deterrence after any peace deal is signed. The allies must still finalize binding commitments, setting out what they will do to support Ukraine. Prospects for progress at the meeting had been uncertain, as the Trump administration's focus is shifting to Venezuela, while U.S. suggestions of a Greenland takeover caused tension with Europe, and Moscow shows no sign of compromise. The countries dubbed the Coalition of the Willing have been exploring for months how to deter any future Russian aggression should it agree to stop fighting Ukraine. Macron's office said an unprecedented number of officials participated in person, with 35 participants, including 27 heads of state and government. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, met with Macron at the Elysee presidential palace for preparatory talks ahead of the gathering. A series of meetings on the summit sideline illustrated the intensity of the diplomatic effort and the complexity of its moving parts. Zelensky met with Macron ahead of the summit. French, British, and Ukrainian military chiefs also met with NATO's top commander, U.S. General Alexis G. Grinkowitz, participating in talks that France's army chiefs said focused on implementing security guarantees. Army chiefs from other coalition nations joined by video. Macron's office said the U.S. delegation was initially set to be led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, but he changed his plans after the U.S. military intervention in Venezuela. Tensions rose on Sunday as Trump renewed his call for the U.S. to take control of Greenland, a strategic mineral-rich Arctic island. The leaders of France, Germany, Italy, Poland, France, and the UK on Tuesday joined Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen in defending Greenland's sovereignty in the wake of Trump's comments about the self-governing territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. But the continent also needs U.S. military might to back up Ukrainian security guarantees and ward off Russia's territorial ambitions. That could require a delicate diplomatic balancing act in Paris. Participants are seeking concrete outcomes on 5 key priorities once fighting ends: ways to monitor a ceasefire, support for Ukraine's armed forces, deployment of a multinational force on land, at sea, and in the air, commitments in case of more Russian aggression, and long-term defense cooperation with Ukraine. But whether that's still achievable isn't so clear now after the U.S. military operation targeting Maduro in Venezuela. Ukraine seeks firm guarantees from Washington of military and other support seen as crucial to securing similar commitments from other allies. Kiev has been wary of any ceasefire that it fears could provide time for Russia to regroup and attack again. Zelensky said deployments in Ukraine by Britain and France Western Europe's only nuclear-armed nations would be essential. Speaking frankly as president, even to the very existence of the coalition depends on whether certain countries are ready to step up their presence, he said. If they are not ready at all, then it is not really a coalition of the willing. In fighting Tuesday, Ukraine's Security Service, SBU, carried out drone strikes on a military arsenal and an oil depot deep inside Russia, according to a security official who was not authorized to comment publicly and thus spoke on a condition of anonymity. The long-range drones hit the arsenal in Russia's Kostroma region, triggering explosions that lasted for hours and forced the evacuation of nearby settlements, the official said. The site was described as a key logistics hub supplying ammunition in western and central Russia. In a separate strike, SBU drones hit an oil depot in Russia's Lipsk region, causing a huge fire, the official said. Larry?
Thank you, Linda. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Linda Ranella
and Larry Beenan. Thank you for listening, and please continue to stay safe.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for Radio Reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio Reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the New York Times Style section. Following that, at noon is today's USA Today. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,